I'm here to express my solidarity with the Palestinian people. We have the two highest courts on the planet determining that Israel is in breach of international law, with the ICJ ruling and now the ICC issuing the arrest warrants for Benjamin Netanyahu. What we've got to focus on is the primacy of international law. We've just had a debate in the House of Commons with great candour, respect, and with great humanity and compassion about people who want to embrace their death at the time of their choosing. The Palestinian people want to live, and they're looking to the world to help them, to support international law, to bring this carnage to an end and let them be pursuing their own route of self-determination in peace in the Middle East. And that's what we've got to concentrate on. That's why we're here today.
Well, I feel we have a shot at justice finally after more than 76 years of gross violations of the basic provisions of human rights, of international law. And we have a shot at justice not because of government's commitments, but of course of the people's commitments. So make no mistake, these waves of people for more than a year, day in and day out, all over the UK, all over the world, has made a difference. Their voices have been heard. And therefore still, the journey to justice is long. The journey to ending this impunity is long, but we have started.
The Palestinian representative at the United Nations, speaking at the Security Council, said, asked the question, is there a separate UN charter for Israel to the ones that the rest of the world has to follow, or certainly the ones the Palestinians have to follow? Is there a deep frustration amongst the Palestinian representatives about the reaction, even when the ICC indictments come? Some countries like France and others and the US certainly say we're not going to be arresting or acting on those indictments.
Absolutely, there is such a frustration, but not at the UN. It's at UN member states that are completely and utterly disregarding the UN Charter, such as the US, and blocking any attempts for a ceasefire, shielding Israel from any responsibility, from any accountability. The problem is not in the law. The problem is not even in the institutions of the United Nations. The problem is in the enforcement. And here, the US and some Western backers of Israel has really proven beyond doubt the double standards, all the way to some Western politicians saying that the ICC and UN institutions have been created only for brown people or for black people or for yellow people, but not for the white people. So the situation in Palestine has really brought to the fore the racism and the double standards and the hypocrisy, and that some Western quarters insist to maintain Israel's absolute immunity. And that's why today's reality is that our international system is under huge strain. And that's why if we do not apply the law equally, I believe this is the beginning of the end of all that we built after the horrors of the Second World War.
How worried are you that Israel will now try and force most of the Palestinians out of Gaza? God knows where, but perhaps that comes in under the Trump administration.
That's exactly the plan, and it's not a new plan only, it's an old plan. They have tried it in 1947-48. They managed to literally ethnically cleanse 2/3 of the Palestinian people at the time. And they are trying it now in Gaza. Otherwise, how do you justify not only the mass murder, but the mass destruction of livelihoods, of homes, of hospitals, of schools, infrastructure, but also the destruction of livelihoods. So they make sure that people have nowhere else to go but to leave. But as our people have confronted the 1948 Nakba and stayed in the land, as our people have continued the resistance, our people now will do the same. We will not be erased. This is a very rooted society, very well-connected society, believe in our rights, active, as you see all over the place, have a political agency that is fighting on our behalf, and have an international solidarity that's growing and growing and growing. And therefore, they might have that plan. No. They do have that plan, but they will not be successful.
The fact that this is not really a ceasefire, it's a temporary pause to continuation of war, because it's only, I think, for 30 days or something, or even less. So the fact that it can carry on. But your question that now Israel can refocus its atrocities upon Gaza, that's really going to take place. That's a fear. I fear that the situation in Gaza is going to get worse because now Netanyahu sees that the world, and his supporters, in particular in Europe, the political supporters, would want him to continue with that rather than open up another front in Lebanon. So there's international politics, local dynamics, but overall, I think the situation will become worse for the people in Gaza, and we need to become very alert of that and make sure that we're prepared to do whatever we can to stop that happening.
A Labour minister this week advised or warned, I don't know what word you want to use, telling teachers, I suppose, not to come to demonstrations for Palestine because it might upset Jewish families, children, whatever. What's your reaction to that?
Man, this is despicable and duplicity in this country that we've seen from our ministers, from Prime Minister downwards. And we've had a very similar response from David Lammy, who talked about there's no journalist in Gaza. When he pretty well knows all the journalists have been murdered by Israel so that they cannot report. The second fact that the journalists are not allowed, external journalists are not allowed to go in because of Israel stopping them going in. So the fact that Israel is doing that means that they are the ones who are perpetrating the crime. The fact that we have in this country political leaders who are supporting Israel and coming out with absolute pathetic statements, trying to discipline us and quite silence us, I think it speaks volume. And we need to rise up to that. We need to challenge those kind of stuff, and we need to go on a counter-offensive and make sure that our children know about Palestine, make sure that children are involved and teachers are involved in demonstrations, and we need to support them. And we demand that the unions here, I think, should play a pivotal role. I think it is the role of the unions to come forward and make sure that they defend their members, particularly in this case the teachers, and support them so that they can come out and demonstrate and ask for justice.
We've seen lots of Jews in America occupying Grand Central Station, occupying Congress, students doing incredible things. Now, I don't think there should be an exception because of they're Jewish, but it's just remarkable that most people think Jews and Israel are synonymous with each other, whereas it's actually Jews and perhaps standing for justice that's synonymous, and that's what we should be concentrating. Is that fair?
Right. Well, unfortunately, the Jewish community is very split, as you know. There are a lot of Jews that I'm ashamed to say are supporting Israel, and there is also a huge now Jewish movement in the U.S. of people who are supporting Palestinian freedom, and I think that is, especially talk about Grand Central and Congress, those big protests, the feeling of the lessons that we learned from our own history, the history of the Holocaust, the history of being persecuted, is that the lesson that we need to learn from that is never again for anyone. And that because we're now seeing Palestinians being attacked in similar ways, that it's our obligation, especially because Israel tries to speak in the name of all Jews, to speak up when we see that happening to another people.
This kind of protesting march and the solidarity we see for the people in Gaza, it means a lot to all of us. It means that everyone is helping to fundamentally change the world. To fundamentally tell everyone it's no more the democratic state in the Middle East. It's a genocide, it's a brutal aggression, it's unfairness, which has been spreaded all over the place. Everyone now can see the amount of really aggressive war crimes happening in Gaza. So thanks to everyone trying to play this role in their part. I know everyone might have to sacrifice something. You pay a price to be part of this. But this is what we need in Gaza. We need to tell everyone that the people in Gaza are living a very horrifying, terrifying genocide. So this means a lot to us.
We, members of the Jewish bloc, join with you and every human being who cares for justice in expressing our horror and rage at the endless terror our government, hanging onto the coattails of the White House warmongers, is allowing to be inflicted on the Palestinian people. A war of extermination against men and women, teenagers and elders, children and newborn infants across Palestine and Lebanon. We are all joined in a global struggle, friends, for freedom and equality for all people, for liberation from colonial oppression, from racism, and from exploitation. Because we all know, as we all know, none of us are free until all are free. That's why a call went out yesterday on the International Day of Solidarity with the people of Palestine from Global Jews for Palestine, a coming together of Jewish organizations from 18 countries on 6 continents. The call was clear: stop arming genocide.
I just interviewed an Israeli pro-Israel demonstrator, and he was saying that you guys, the people on this demonstration here, he implied that you're just all anti-Jews, Jew haters basically, anti-Jewish.
To be fair, at this point, I think they're just going to keep on saying what they want to say. At this point, it doesn't matter what they say because they're all lying since the start. So it's very fair that we've been trying to convince them. They've seen everything on the. We don't need to convince them. Everything is in front of them on the screens. It's live. It's a live stream genocide. If they still don't believe this, then it's a their problem.
Well, they don't.
Yeah, they don't believe it, so this is their problem. And that's something in their hearts that we can't change. It's like it says in the Quran that their hearts are closed off. Right?
Okay. What about those Jewish people that you have seen demonstrating with you? How much hope does that give you?
It's a lot of hope. I mean, there are a lot of people who are not supporting this. Again, Zionism is not Judaism. This needs to be very clearly stated as well. So it's not Judaism, it's Zionism. And that is the problem. So there are a lot of Jewish people who are actively supporting this. And that's amazing. For example, Norman Finkelstein. Professor Norman Finkelstein, he's an amazing person. Yeah. His voice is amazing, and the knowledge he has is amazing.
He had a talk this week.
Sorry?
In East London. He had a talk.
Yeah. I think I saw it as well, yeah. So exactly. So it's just like conflating Judaism and Zionism is a problem over here. That needs to be clearly stated that that's a difference.
Let me tell you something about these lying, genocidal, self-appointed masters of the universe who have killed so many people across Gaza, across the West Bank, and across Lebanon. They are the same people, the exact same people who have us on the verge of a nuclear war right now. The very same people.
As artists, we cannot remain silent in the face of such gross violations. Violations of human rights and of international law, violations of the truth and of every human instinct. The propaganda campaign that has been imposed on all of us has spread everywhere, has been skillfully managed, and has become very effective in its threats to punish and disempower those who speak out. In my own sector, the silence of many arts and cultural institutions has been deafening. Those arts organizations that rightly hung Ukrainian flags over their doors have closed those same doors to the Palestinian voice. Cancelling film festivals, music gigs, book events, shutting down galleries and theatre performances if they in any way speak to the Palestinian cause. The very arts organizations that would fight for the right for freedom of expression, a freedom on which we crucially depend, are sitting back and watching that freedom be eroded. So I want to call on those cultural institutions and on all our public spaces to uphold that freedom of expression, to defend the right to speak and to protest. I urge them to reject politically motivated attempts to silence and to censor. What is the point of art if not to address the great moral issues of our time?
If you're anything like me, you'll have gone through stages of looking and then looking away, churning through feelings of helplessness and breaking down when there's nothing else. Somehow, over 14 months, these images have become genres, possible to categorize as the reality repeats itself. More lifeless babies pulled out from the rubble, more children waking up to a world in which they have been orphaned, recognizing no one. More children running after their bleeding parents or hugging their graves. More mothers and fathers wailing over the bodies of their children. More aid trucks joyously held back. More hospitals evacuated or bombed. More schools used as shelters turned into the sites of massacres. More bodies burning alive. More body parts thrown into black bags and then weighed to approximate a human being.
So, I mean, but the awakening that this has caused, God bless the Gazans and the Palestinians, because they're representing the soul, the living soul, and the free soul of Muslims in this world. And it's such a reminder, they still haven't been colonized. Many of us have been. God bless the Gazans.
Generally speaking, how do you feel about a year of genocide in Gaza, with the ICC having issued arrest warrants for Israeli leaders, yet politicians in the West are saying perhaps we won't arrest them. Even it was incredible that the Dutch Prime Minister yesterday said that they may provide immunity, even though the ICC tribunal is based in The Hague, which is in his country.
Yeah.
How complicit do you feel these people are?
I mean, it's absolute hypocrisy and absolute double standards. They are providing the weapons for an apartheid state, a racist state, to bomb and destroy Palestinian people, to commit genocide against the Palestinian people. And yet, they are not prepared to stand up and oppose that genocide and oppose the human rights violations by the Israeli state. It is total hypocrisy and double standards. And we can have no sympathy, we can have no toleration of these Western governments telling us what we can and what we cannot do.
Why do you think politicians feel they can intervene on this topic and tell us or tell people like you what they can and can't do and how they should demonstrate and what they should feel or think?
Because I think, unfortunately, for this current government and for the last few governments, we can see that they're trying to control the narrative of how the world should be and how the UK want to be perceived. And unfortunately for them, the people are smart enough to know and see the truth from doing their own research and finding out more via, again, social media. So people are making a stand against the government and they can no longer control the narrative, hence why they are fighting so hard to tell us what to do or what not to do and imposing all these ridiculous laws, especially for pro-Palestinians, to say that if we do certain things, we are going to be charged under the new Terrorism Act, which is despicable and it's unacceptable. And we as the people of the Great Britain will have to fight back. And we have to keep going to these demonstrations and protests and do everything we can to stop the government from telling us what to do, because we know what's right. And the right thing to do is to save humanity.
I've been given a message from Dr. Husam Zomlot, the director of Kamal Adwan Hospital in northern Gaza. He was working in his hospital, and he has been all the way through the horrors of this conflict. Was seized by the Israeli forces, taken into Israel, tortured and beaten in the prison, and then thrown out of prison, and came back to his hospital. As he re-entered the hospital, the Israeli Defense Force came in with him and smashed equipment as he walked through his own hospital, smashed life-saving equipment and did as much damage as they possibly could. The message reads like this: the truth is, this is a war of extermination. There are no longer any laws. In fact, all their laws are imaginary. Our medical humanitarian mission is continually being attacked and destroyed in plain sight for the whole world, and not a single voice has spoken out. This is not including the humiliation and arbitrary detention and persecution of healthcare workers. They are hitting us with everything and on all fronts just for the sake of the politics of destruction. There are no tools or resources for us to protect and to serve. Because what has happened yesterday and the day before that, and what will continue to happen is that this entity will continue to do what it wants, because no one is standing up for humanitarianism and the human rights of civilians. The targeting of our healthcare system is purposeful and relentless in order to make us submit and to tell the world that we wanted to surrender. However, they don't realize that we would die here in order to continue to serve our medical duty.
I am so honored to join you today as one of thousands of anti-Zionist Jews in the United States who are proud to stand in unconditional and wholehearted solidarity with the Palestinian struggle for freedom from the river to the sea. One of thousands of anti-Zionist Jews who reject Zionism as a fundamentally racist and colonial ideology that has been used to exile, massacre, and oppress Palestinians for over 76 years. As Jews in the U.S., more and more every single day, we refuse to be used as a moral cover for a settler colonial apartheid state. We refuse the lie that U.S. support for Israel has anything to do with Jewish safety, when we know it has everything to do with making billions of dollars for weapons manufacturers and for Wall Street and expanding Western imperial interests in the region. We will not rest until the U.S. stops sending any money and any weapons to Israel. London, when we say never again for anyone, we mean anyone. We mean that we must stand up every single time a population is being exterminated, is being ethnically cleansed, particularly when it is being done in our names and with our tax dollars, not in our name.
The parents in rain-soaked tents, the grandparents still planting seeds in the ground for the future. Our people, our collective, will never give up our rights and will never give up our struggle. So I say to you again, our struggle is your struggle. Our rights are your rights. Our liberation is your liberation. We will continue together and we will prevail together until Palestine is free, until we are all free. Free, 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 free. Thank you.